Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to the Sailing Show on Wisp Sports Radio, the monthly podcast that will steer and inspire you along your sailing journey. This is Season 4, Episode 7. I'm Abby Ehler, a 3-time round-the-world racer. I've worked shoreside with the America's Cup and now with Sail GP. I'm the mother of one 7-year-old son and a director at the Magenta Project. I'll be chatting to a wide range of women within the sailing community, including Olympic champions, ocean racers, change makers, and up-and-coming champions. Whether you're aspiring to race around the world, compete at the Olympics, or just needing a spark of inspiration, the Sailing Show will have something for you. And this month's podcast takes a little different format in the fact that it's made up of audio logs that I have recorded whilst competing in the New York Yacht Club Transatlantic Race on board the 82-foot yacht Aegir. The race started out of Newport in Rhode Island on the 25th of June and took us 14 days to complete, crossing the finish line at Cowes on the Isle of Wight. The podcast includes an interview with Caitlin Murphy, one of my crewmates who was competing in her first transatlantic race. It's the day before race start and we've had our final crew meeting to discuss the weather for the crossing. Our navigator Mike Broughton, in his pre-race spiel, has set the scene for a big picture, describing it as a very light crossing, with the exception of perhaps the first 24 hours where we'll see quite a few squalls. And it's going to be a bit of a game of snakes and ladders as the front moves across. He's likened our exit out of Newport to that of catching a train, in the sense that the passing front that is travelling west to east, and combined with the timing of our start, it would most likely enable us to jump on the second to last carriage and hang on, basically by going as fast as we can east, hang on to the good breeze. Behind that front there's a big area of no wind, and also ahead of that there's an area of no wind. So it's an extremely complex situation and a very unconventional weather situation for this time of year. Our big goal is that we're going to stay east, obviously to stay on this front, or the train as it's been described. Given that the front is moving much faster than we are, we have to do whatever we can to get east. But we also wanted to get south to set ourselves up better for the low pressure system, which will be coming through in 2 to 3 days' time. So it's a difficult balance to play. Our ideal heading out of Newport is about 150 degrees magnetic, which is currently where the wind is coming from, so not ideal. But the big picture is that the next few days it's all bad in the north. So here goes. It's 4:30 in the afternoon on day 1, which is of Volvo 70, was just ahead of us. They appeared like they were going to go inside the island and then all of a sudden tacked and to go offshore as well. So a little bit of excitement there. Now we can no longer see Scallywag, they've gone off the horizon. Wizard is just to windward of us, and yeah, we're cruising along. We've fairly flat water. We've passed a number of fishing boats, fishing pots, and we're heading into our first night. So conditions are good apart from the rain. It has been raining since about an hour after the start, and it's still raining now. But yeah, it's flat water, not too cold. So heading into my bunk for my first off-watch. It's day 2. We've been at sea for about 36 hours now. And we started out of Newport at just after 11 on Tuesday morning. We've had fairly benign conditions for the first 24 hours. We have been upwind, which is quite unusual for this crossing, but really flat water and just slightly cracked off the breeze, so going fast in the right direction, which has been fantastic. We got position reports in early hours of Wednesday, and we were aware that we'd got slightly further north of the fleet compared to where we wanted to be. So we've made a conscious decision to push further south, which has meant coming more on the wind and less open. We've now got so far south that we're pushing into the Gulf Stream, which is very much like a washing machine at the moment. Conditions are really choppy. The only good thing is that the water is warm and the air is really warm. So we've gone from being really cold on that first night at sea to absolutely baking the second night. We can't open any of the hatches because there's water coming over the decks. So it's like a complete sauna down below. Anyway, everyone's in good spirits. There's a couple that are a little bit seasick, but other than that, all good. The nights are really, really dark. There's no moon, so it's proving really hard on the eyes. But yeah, looking forward to the next position report and seeing how we're going. It's day 2 at sea. We've had a very bumpy second night at sea, with conditions being akin to being in a washing machine on a hot cycle as we negotiate the Gulf Stream, and also trying to head south to position us in a good setup for a low pressure system which is coming up, travelling south to north. The Gulf Stream is the warm current that runs west to east from the States over towards the UK. In areas it has up to 2 to 3 knots of current. It's very warm water. It's about 22-25 degrees Celsius. So we've been playing a bit of a game of trying to set ourselves up in the best possible position for the low pressure, but equally trying to get the conveyor belt of the Gulf Stream. So quite a few of us have tacked south, and we've had a number of tacks actually through the night, just as the breeze has been shifting and the tide or the current has been shifting. So a very busy night, but a very bumpy night. A couple of people have not taken so well to the conditions and have been a little bit seasick. Our water maker is also not happy and has given up making water. At daylight this morning, we resorted to making water with our emergency hand pump, just as a precaution until we can get the main one up and running. Thursday afternoon now, we've cracked off a little bit, no longer going hard upwind. Conditions are a little nicer, water's a little flatter. We're probably in sort of 15 knots of breeze, 15 to 18 knots of breeze, and it's due to soften now for the next 8 to 12 hours. So finally we'll have a bit of a regroup, a bit of a sort out in the boat, get back to a bit of normality. It's day 5 at sea, and we've had a few incidents with our water maker not working. So we're having to hand pump all of our water to be able to drink fresh water. We've emptied the tank, the freshwater tanks. One of the collateral damage, you could say, from not having water in the tank or a working water maker is that the heads or the toilets on board the yacht are all flushed by using the freshwater system. So we are not able to flush the toilet in the normal mean. One of the adventures that's been going on is the ingenuity of how you go to the toilet. It brings back memories from a similar incident during the last Volvo Ocean Race when we hadn't packed enough poo bags for the leg. Think about this being a racing yacht with no flushing toilets, and basically you have to do your business in a bag and then throw it over the side, composts. But this is a boat that has flushing toilets, and so both of these incidents require you to find ingenious ways of going to the toilet and how to flush a non-cooperating specimen down the toilet. What basically happens is you'll see people come out the hatchway, make a beeline for the back of the boat with a bucket to gather some seawater and then go back down below. And the number of trails will generally give you a good idea of the level of non-cooperation that said specimen is having going down the toilet. But the similarities between both situations are that the emotions are the same, the stories, the humour, the jokes, they remain the same. In fact, on any of the boats I've competed where there have been toilet mishaps, which seems to be quite a common incident on boats. The fact that we're on a very plush yacht with 4 toilets on board and they all have faux marble and veneer interiors, they're air conditioned, it just adds to the bizarre predicament of the toilet misdemeanors that we're having. Despite all this and the delicate topic that it is, everyone is still smiling, we're in good spirits, we're making good miles in the right direction. It's very flat water, reaching conditions, so the wind's on the beam means that we're able to go in a straight line and go fast. We've done well on our competitors, a Wizard and Scallywag. Still a very long way to go and a big ridge of pressure between us and the finish line, which is going to mean difficult negotiations to get through that in a good way. So fingers crossed, got to keep pushing. Today is day 7 at sea. We've had fairly nice sailing conditions for the last couple of days. It's been on the beam reaching. Just yesterday evening we got a spinnaker up, so we've had more downwind sailing, which has been very pleasant. The sea state's been a little bit choppy just due to the fact that we're in fairly big current as an effect of the Gulf Stream, so sometimes you end up with a bit of wind against tide, which makes for very choppy conditions. But generally, all in all, conditions are fairly nice, not too many sail changes. Other than that, it's all fairly quiet on board. We've seen quite a lot of wildlife just in the last couple of days, plenty of dolphins, porpoises, a few whales, lots of birds. So that's been very pleasant to see all of that at sea. And obviously the people doing this crossing for the first time, they've been absolutely enthralled watching the dolphins play in our wake. You sometimes forget, I guess, when you become a bit complacent when you see them so often, and yet it was great to see people seeing them for the first time and their reaction. Other news is that our ETA is now looking a little longer than first anticipated. Originally we were looking at a 11 to 12 day crossing, and we're probably not more like 13 at the moment due to the big high pressure system that's coming over, which will mean nice warm conditions but not very much wind. So we'll just have to see how that plays out over the next few days. Other than that, morale is good on board.
The vision of the Magenta Project is to be the worldwide organisation that enables women to have equal access and opportunities in the sport of sailing, empowering and inspiring women across the globe through supporting elite success. Its mission is to upskill athletes to enable them to reach the top of their sport, inspiring generations of female racing sailors and driving change within the sailing industry. Visit the website for more information and to learn about the latest projects, including the mentoring program at themagentaproject.org. And be sure to follow on social media at the Magenta Proj, that's the Magenta PROJ, on Twitter and Instagram, and the Magenta Project on Facebook.
Day 10. It's the 4th of July, Independence Day for the United States of America. And given that we are skippered by an American and his children are on board, we have celebrated in true American style. The family had brought on a lot of bandanas, necklaces, flags, and so forth. So we celebrated on deck, cranked out some Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. Equally, we've had beautiful sailing conditions, so we've been under spinnaker now for a good 3 days, just changing angle slightly as the breeze has shifted. Fairly light conditions, so about 10 to 15 knots of breeze, reasonably flat water, so very pleasant sailing conditions all in all. Given that we've only got probably 3 to 4 days left at sea, the conversation on deck is starting to turn towards shoreside, what we're going to do on arrival, how many sets of clothing we've still got left to change into, and so forth. So you can generally you feel the hype of people's excitement about getting to the end of this. Today is day 12. 2 days ago, conversation had turned to what we were going to do when we got ashore, and we were all getting very excited about the fact that we would perhaps sea land tomorrow with an ETA finishing on day 14. However, progress seems to have been stalled by a very large high-pressure system which has parked itself between us and the finish line. Now, 2 days ago we were discussing our strategy as to how we would negotiate this high pressure, really only being two options: to go to the north of it, making for a much longer route, or to try to go through the centre. Obviously a much shorter and more direct route, but the prospect of much less breeze. And it reminded many of us of the children's book, which is titled We're All Going on a Bear Hunt, which is about a family going on a bear hunt and overcoming a number of obstacles. And of all the obstacles, the phrase is, we can't go over it, we can't go under it, we're going to have to go through it. And basically that resembles us and this high pressure system. It was just unfeasible for us to have gone the more northern, longer route. And so we're negotiating our way through the centre, which means lots of areas of patchy wind, light wind. We're jibing through the shifts and basically just trying to keep the boat moving all the time. It also means that our ETA has got slightly longer, so although the conversation was all starting to hype up about our arrival, that's slightly subdued today as the ETA gets predictably longer and longer. We're still really hoping to be in sight of land by late tomorrow. We've learned today that the leading boats have finished, and so it's not over yet. Still a long way to go. The spirits are still high, everyone's in a good place, and still very much looking forward to getting across that finish line. We are nearing the completion of our journey. It's a fairly slow finish to the race. So we're drifting currently in the English Channel towards our final destination of Cowes on the Isle of Wight, having come from Newport. I'm sailing with Clark Murphy and his family aboard the yacht, and the first time I had the pleasure of sailing with Clark was in the same race back in 2005. And Clark has gone on to compete in every edition of the Transatlantic Race since then. The difference this time around is that he's joined by his two daughters and his son, one of which is Caitlin, who's with me now. So Caitlin, tell me, how did all this come about?
As we've grown up with Dad as a big sailor, we've also grown up dinghy sailing and just cruising on the weekends with the family. In 2005, when Dad first decided to get a crew together to do the Transatlantic, all we knew is that we'd say bye to him in New York and then say hello to him again in England. And I remember flying out to greet him and Abby and the rest of the crew on the docks, and how exciting it was, having tracked him and followed the blogs and heard about the Rip Spinnaker and the big waves and all of the excitement. And when he came back to New York, then our teachers were also very excited. And so our whole class, our kindergarten class, had been following him. We were 5 at the time. And so Dad came in to talk to our class. And so he came in all of his foul weather gear. And it was great fun because he took us out to the playground. And we got to spray him with hoses and dump water on him to show what it was like when you were at sea. And he took off his foul weather gear and was completely dry. And I remember all of my friends thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then 2011 came around, and Dad decided to go on a bit of a bigger and faster boat on Leopard, and we were there again to watch him leave Newport and greet him again on a little rib as he crossed the finish line. And then Nomad, with its trials and tribulations, again competed in 2015. And my siblings were away that summer, but my mom and I sent him off again from Newport and watched him arrive again in England. And so once this year rolled around with the 2019 Transatlantic, we basically put our foot down and said, Dad, we've had enough of sending you off and greeting you on the docks, and we want to go with you. And so after a bit of convincing and promises, then here we are. And so it's myself, my older sister, and my younger brother, and we've had an incredible experience so far.
And had you done much sailing before this trip?
So I grew up dinghy sailing, racing 420s, and when we were younger, opties. And we had a bigger boat, a 42-foot X yacht that my dad's boat that we'd sail on the weekends and do some races in the summers. But other than 2 Newport Bermuda races, I'd never done any offshore sailing before this race.
Okay, so this is a pretty big step up then, going from,
yes, definitely.
And so we've travelled roughly 3,500 miles across the Atlantic. Admittedly, it has been a relatively benign crossing in terms of what it can be like. But even so, it's a long time at sea. It takes a lot of getting used to being out of sight of land and just constantly trying to push the boat. So how have you found it?
I found it an incredible experience. I love the kind of remoteness of it, being just with the 13 other members of the crew in the middle of our own little wild circle of ocean. And just like incredible fun, being able to learn from some of the best, learn to be a better sailor, and whether it's from the bowman or at the helm or cooking down below. And
the weather stuff.
Some navigation lessons as well, which we could use right now. But yes, I've absolutely loved it. And as Budgie, one of our tacticians, always says, it's a lot of lessons. One of the biggest is patience, which we are trying right now.
Yeah. And we've had a few other problems, one of them being our water maker stopped working. So tell us a bit about that.
So day 2 of the race, we went to go turn on our fresh water, which also pumps to the toilets, sinks, and obviously to drink, and found that the motherboard had blown out, so we no longer had a fresh water maker. And so we pulled out our little handheld water maker, and so began the next 10 days of extreme water pumping. And so it's been just kind of hilarious that we are in the middle of the ocean full of water, and yet we are sitting there pumping every day. And so I think we did the math, and we have pumped so far in our 14 days or 12 days of water pumping 3,900 liters of water, which is the fresh water we've created, and 3,900 liters of salt water to create 390 liters of fresh water. And as we float in the English Channel, we're slowly dwindling down that supply. Might have to bring the water maker back out. But it was an experience or a lesson in resourcefulness and getting the crew together, working as a team to constantly on each watch, during tacks, during whatever, to alternate and make sure that we stay alive as we continue on our way.
Journey. Yeah. And as we're chatting here, we're sat on the bow, and you've just pointed at something which I'm guessing is a bit of wildlife in the glassy water. What about what have you seen on this trip that's something that you perhaps haven't experienced before?
My favorite thing so far is all the dolphins. So I think at least every day, if not most watches, we have a group or 1 or 2 dolphins who come swim in the wake of the boat. And one morning we woke up, I'd been dragged awake early to help pack a spinnaker, and we heard shouts of dolphins, and a whole pod of maybe 50-75 dolphins were surrounding the boat. And so we took turns sitting on the bowsprit and just watching as they jumped in the water. It was incredible. And then at night with the phosphorescence, you just see them like torpedoes surrounding the boat, and it's just incredible to sit and watch the wildlife, as well as plenty of birds and a couple whales.
Yeah, no, it has been really great. More so at night, the phosphorescence has been amazing.
Incredible.
And I guess because we haven't had a moon, it's made it even more vivid than it is really. And slightly unfortunate, we've had a lot of cloud cover, so we haven't seen many stars. And in fact, probably last night was almost the best night at sea, which is, our second to last night at sea, and we had a great sunset and a starry, clear night for perhaps the first time in the crossing. So that was pretty unique. All in all, what do you think you'll take away from this trip?
I think plenty of stories, whether from other crew members, from my dad loved to tell stories, so just sitting around listening, learning more about him and be able to share this. But I think just I am a person who tends to love to do a lot of activity, and just be able to sit still and enjoy the surroundings and each other's company has been just an incredible experience. And being away from our phones, which we always laugh about, but in this day and age is a very difficult thing to do. So yeah, I will miss the solitude of being out at sea and the excitement of all hands on deck call and how fun it's been just being with everyone.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, and wish you all the best for the future and for your future sailing adventures, and maybe we'll see you in 4 years' time on the next Transatlantic.
Thank you, Abby.
Well, as we ghosted our way up the Solent towards the finish line at the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes, we finished close to midnight in the pitch black, and here was the moment we crossed the line.
We'll be on for about 30 seconds, I think, okay? Okay, putting on in 3, 2, 1, 3 on now.
Well, that concludes this New York Yacht Club Transatlantic Race and also this episode of The Sailing Show, where we've crossed an ocean, made our own fresh water and talked to a first-time ocean racer.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and share this episode if you know someone who would enjoy listening to what we've had to say. Please continue to follow the Magenta Project on our website and social media. And to keep up to date on women's sport in general, not just sailing, check out Wisp Sports online and social media. Thanks for your time, and I appreciate you tuning in.